Somewhere between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, in a stretch of the Atlantic Ocean roughly the size of Texas, over 50 ships and 20 aircraft have vanished without a trace. No wreckage. No distress calls. No bodies. No explanation. Just gone. Some disappeared in perfect weather, on clear days, with experienced crews who gave no sign of trouble and then simply ceased to exist. Some sent their final transmissions sounding confused, disoriented, as if the world around them had suddenly stopped making sense. Some were found completely abandoned, tables still set for dinner, engines still running, cargo undisturbed, as if every single person on board had simply stepped off the edge of the world. Over 8,000 people have been lost in this region across recorded history. And to this day, no one can fully explain what is happening there. This is the story of the Bermuda Triangle, the most famous mystery on the face of the earth. And the truth beneath the myth is more fascinating, more terrifying, and more complicated than any legend has ever dared to suggest. Welcome to Empire Echo Archive, where the world's most extraordinary mysteries are finally given the full, honest treatment they deserve. Subscribe to Empire Echo Archive right now and hit that bell icon. Stay with us. This is going to be one hell of a journey. Where is the Bermuda Triangle? The Bermuda Triangle is not an officially recognized geographic region. It does not appear on any official government map. The United States Navy does not acknowledge its existence as a distinct danger zone. The U.S. Board on Geographic Names has never formally recognized the name. And yet, it is one of the most famous places on Earth. The term Bermuda Triangle was first coined in 1964, in an article written by Vincent Gaddis for the American pulp magazine Argosy. Gaddis drew an imaginary triangle connecting 3 points: Miami, Florida, in the west, the island of Bermuda in the north, and Puerto Rico in the south. Within this triangle lay approximately 500,000 square miles of open Atlantic Ocean. Gaddis wrote about a pattern of disappearances in this region that he found inexplicable. His article captured the public imagination immediately. Within a decade, the Bermuda Triangle had become a worldwide cultural phenomenon. Books were written. Films were made. Theories multiplied. But the strange stories from this region long predate Vincent Gaddis. Christopher Columbus, sailing through the area in 1492 on his first voyage to the Americas, wrote in his log about bizarre compass readings. His compass was pointing in the wrong direction. He also reported seeing a strange ball of fire fall into the sea, and described mysterious lights on the horizon. Columbus was not a man easily frightened. He had sailed into the unknown ocean when every other navigator in Europe thought he was sailing toward the edge of the world. But the Bermuda Triangle gave even Columbus pause. The region itself has genuine unusual characteristics that make it one of the most challenging maritime environments on Earth. The Gulf Stream, one of the most powerful ocean currents in the world, runs directly through the Bermuda Triangle. It can reach speeds of over 5 miles per hour, strong enough to rapidly carry debris away from a disaster site and scatter any evidence of what happened. The weather in the region is notoriously unpredictable. Violent storms can appear with almost no warning. The area sits in a zone where Atlantic hurricanes frequently form and travel. Waterspouts, which are essentially tornadoes over water, are common. The ocean floor beneath the Bermuda Triangle is extraordinarily varied. To the west, near Florida, the water is relatively shallow. But the Puerto Rico Trench, which runs along the southern edge of the triangle, reaches depths of over 27,000 feet. That is over 8 kilometers straight down. Objects that sink into the Puerto Rico Trench are effectively lost forever. No recovery operation in the world could reach them. This is the environment into which ships and planes have been disappearing for centuries. The ghost ships, abandoned on open water. Before we get to the crashes and the vanishings, we must begin with perhaps the most deeply unsettling category of Bermuda Triangle mystery. The ghost ships. These are not ships that sank. Not ships that exploded or burned. These are ships that were found floating, completely intact, fully provisioned, engines sometimes still running, all equipment in perfect working order, with every single member of the crew simply gone. The most famous of all ghost ships was not found inside the Bermuda Triangle, but it set the template for every ghost ship mystery that followed it. The Mary Celeste. On December 5, 1872, the British brigantine Dei Grazia was sailing from New York to Gibraltar through the North Atlantic. About 400 miles east of the Azores, the crew spotted another vessel. It was sailing erratically, moving without apparent direction, its sails set in an unusual pattern. The captain of the Dei Grazia sent a small boat to investigate. What they found on board the Mary Celeste was one of the most bizarre scenes in maritime history. The ship was completely abandoned, but it showed no signs of any emergency or disaster. The cargo of 1,800 barrels of commercial alcohol was intact in the hold. The personal belongings of the crew and the captain's wife and daughter were all present, completely undisturbed. The captain's logbook was still open on the navigation table. The last entry was dated 10 days earlier, when the ship had been about 400 miles southwest of where she was found now. The ship's one lifeboat was gone. The ship had clearly been abandoned in a hurry. But there was cooked food still on the stove. The captain's sword was still in its scabbard on the bed. The little girl's toys were still on the cabin floor. The captain, his wife, his daughter, and 7 crew members were never seen again. No bodies were ever found. No explanation has ever been proven. To this day, the mystery of the Mary Celeste has never been definitively solved. The Ellen Austin, the ship that kept losing its crew. In 1881, the American schooner Ellen Austin was sailing from New York to London when, in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle, the captain spotted another vessel. The ship was drifting, moving with the current and the wind, with no apparent control. The captain ordered a crew to board it and investigate. They found a completely abandoned ship. No crew. No passengers. No bodies. The cargo was intact. There was no obvious reason why the ship had been abandoned. Captain Baker of the Ellen Austin made a decision. He put a small prize crew on board the abandoned vessel, with instructions to sail it to New York alongside the Ellen Austin. The 2 ships set off together. Then a squall hit. The ships were separated in the storm. When the weather cleared and the Ellen Austin found the abandoned vessel again, the prize crew was gone. Every single man that Captain Baker had placed on the ship had vanished without trace, just like the original crew before them. According to some accounts, Captain Baker, incredibly, placed a second prize crew on board. And this second crew also vanished. The abandoned ship eventually disappeared entirely. It was never found again. The story of the Ellen Austin sits at the intersection of maritime mystery and something far more difficult to explain. Because the disappearance of not one but potentially 2 separate prize crews from the same ship, in the same stretch of ocean, strains every rational explanation to its absolute limit. USS Cyclops, the greatest maritime mystery in American history. On March 4, 1918, one of the United States Navy's largest fuel ships left the harbor of Barbados on a routine voyage to Baltimore, Maryland. The USS Cyclops was enormous, 350 feet long. Built to carry coal and other bulk cargoes across the Atlantic in support of U.S. naval operations. On this particular voyage, she was carrying 11,000 tons of manganese ore and a crew of 309 men. The weather when she departed Barbados was described as fair. The sea conditions were good. The ship had recently been serviced. The captain sent a routine communication from Barbados reporting no problems. And then the USS Cyclops sailed into the Bermuda Triangle and ceased to exist. She never sent a distress signal. No wreckage was ever found. No bodies were ever recovered. 309 men simply vanished from the surface of the Earth. The disappearance of the USS Cyclops remains, to this day, the single largest non-combat loss of life in the entire history of the United States Navy. One ship. 309 men. Zero explanation. President Woodrow Wilson himself commented on the disappearance, saying, "Only God and the sea know what happened to the great ship." Naval investigators examined every possible explanation. Enemy action, though the United States had just entered World War I. A structural failure, as the ship was known to have a mechanical problem with one of its engines. A rogue wave or severe storm. None of these explanations fit the available evidence. The fact that no distress signal was ever sent means that whatever happened to the USS Cyclops happened with extraordinary speed. Faster than a trained wireless operator could get to his equipment and send a message. Something took that ship apart so quickly that 309 trained sailors had no time to respond. What it was, no one knows. Flight 19, the disappearance that defined the legend. If one single event is responsible for the worldwide fame of the Bermuda Triangle, it is the disappearance of Flight 19. On December 5, 1945, 5 U.S. Navy torpedo bombers took off from Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale in Florida for a routine training exercise. The exercise was called Navigation Problem Number 1. The pilots were to fly east over the Atlantic, perform a practice bombing run on some shoals, turn north, and then return to base. The total flight time was expected to be about 2 hours. The flight leader was Lieutenant Charles Taylor. He was an experienced pilot with over 2,500 hours of flight time. His 4 student pilots were also fully qualified aviators. All 5 planes were in good mechanical condition. The weather at takeoff was clear. About 90 minutes into the flight, the Fort Lauderdale control tower received a transmission from Lieutenant Taylor that sent a chill through the control room. Taylor reported that his compass was malfunctioning. He didn't know where he was. He thought he was somewhere over the Florida Keys, but nothing looked right. He was disoriented. The control tower tried to help him navigate back to base. But Taylor's transmissions grew increasingly confused. He reported seeing land but couldn't identify it. He reported his fuel was getting low. He kept changing direction, unable to find his bearings. One of the last transmissions from Flight 19 that was clearly heard was Taylor saying to his students, "We are completely lost." Then silence. All 5 aircraft, all 14 crew members, vanished completely. A PBM Mariner rescue plane was immediately dispatched to search for them. It too disappeared. The rescue plane and its crew of 13 were never found, though it was later determined that the rescue plane almost certainly exploded in mid-air, as a ship in the area reported seeing a fireball and then sailed through an oil slick. But the 5 original aircraft of Flight 19 and their 14 crew members have never been found. Despite extensive searches covering hundreds of thousands of square miles of ocean, nothing was ever recovered. What happened to Lieutenant Taylor and his students? The Navy's official investigation concluded that the cause was cause unknown. The most likely explanation, based on the transmission records, is that Taylor made a critical navigation error early in the flight and then became so confused about his location that he led his entire flight further and further out to sea until they ran out of fuel. But even this explanation leaves uncomfortable questions. 5 experienced aviators, all flying in the same region, all with compasses that were reportedly malfunctioning. How does an entire flight of military aircraft simply disappear without leaving a single piece of recoverable wreckage? More disappearances. The pattern continues. Flight 19 was far from the only aircraft to vanish in the Bermuda Triangle. In January 1948, a British passenger aircraft, the Star Tiger, disappeared while flying from the Azores to Bermuda with 25 passengers and 6 crew. No distress signal. No wreckage. Nothing. Less than a year later, in January 1949, a sister aircraft, the Star Ariel, disappeared while flying from Bermuda to Jamaica with 13 passengers and crew. Again, no distress signal, no wreckage, no explanation. In December 1948, a Douglas DC-3 passenger aircraft disappeared while flying from San Juan, Puerto Rico to Miami with 29 passengers and 3 crew. The last radio transmission from the captain was completely routine, reporting position and requesting landing instructions at Miami. The plane never arrived. No wreckage was ever found. In October 1954, a U.S. Navy Super Constellation aircraft with 42 on board disappeared between Bermuda and New Jersey. Nothing found. In 1963, 2 U.S. Air Force KC-135 Stratotanker aircraft collided and crashed in the Bermuda Triangle. But what made this incident unusual was that the wreckage recovered was found 300 miles apart, far more than could be explained by any normal crash scenario. The most recent significant disappearance occurred in 2017, when a private plane with 3 people on board departed Puerto Rico and vanished over the Bermuda Triangle. Some debris was found near the Bahamas. No bodies were recovered. The list goes on and on. More than 50 ships and 20 aircraft, across over a century of recorded disappearances, with no satisfactory explanation for any of them. You are watching Empire Echo Archive. If this documentary is keeping you up, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel right now. The most unsettling part of this story is still ahead. The theories. What is really happening? Over the decades, an extraordinary variety of theories have been proposed to explain the Bermuda Triangle. They range from the scientifically credible to the genuinely bizarre. Let us go through them. All of them. Because the truth, as we will see, is more complex than any single theory can capture. Theory 1. Human error. The most boring explanation is also, according to many researchers, the most likely one. The Bermuda Triangle is one of the busiest stretches of ocean in the world. Enormous volumes of ship and air traffic pass through it every year. When you have that much traffic, you will inevitably have accidents, navigation errors, and disasters. The fact that a certain number of those accidents result in disappearances is not surprising given the extreme depths of the Puerto Rico Trench and the power of the Gulf Stream to carry wreckage away from its point of origin. In 1975, an American author and pilot named Lawrence Kusch published a landmark book called The Bermuda Triangle Mystery, Solved. Kusch went back to the original records of every documented disappearance in the Triangle and compared them against Lloyd's of London insurance records, Coast Guard reports, and contemporaneous newspaper accounts. What he found was explosive. Many of the incidents that had been attributed to the Bermuda Triangle had actually occurred outside its boundaries. Several had occurred in terrible weather conditions that were simply left out of the popular accounts. Some of the vessels described as vanished without trace had actually been found, just not in very dramatic circumstances. Kusch's conclusion was stark. The disappearance rate in the Bermuda Triangle was not statistically higher than in any other comparable stretch of busy ocean. The legend of the Bermuda Triangle was, in his analysis, largely a construction of inaccurate reporting, exaggeration, and selective storytelling. The World Wildlife Fund, in a 2013 study, identified the world's 10 most dangerous waters for shipping. The Bermuda Triangle was not among them. Theory 2. Methane gas hydrates. One of the more scientifically interesting theories suggests that the Bermuda Triangle sits over large deposits of methane gas hydrates, essentially frozen methane locked into ice-like structures on the ocean floor. Geological surveys have confirmed that such deposits do exist in the region. The theory proposes that if a large deposit of methane hydrates suddenly releases, it can create a massive bubble of gas rising rapidly to the surface. This gas bubble could theoretically reduce the buoyancy of the water above it enough to cause a ship to sink almost instantly, explaining why some ships disappear with no distress signal. The rising gas could also ignite when it reaches the surface, creating the fireballs that several witnesses have reported seeing in the area. And if a methane cloud reached an aircraft at the right altitude, it could potentially cause engine failure. This theory remains scientifically plausible but unproven. No methane release event has ever been directly observed in the Bermuda Triangle. Theory 3. Unusual weather phenomena. The Bermuda Triangle is home to some of the most extreme and unpredictable weather on Earth. Rogue waves, which are spontaneous, massive walls of water that appear without warning and can reach heights of 30 meters or more, have been scientifically confirmed as real phenomena. A rogue wave of sufficient size could sink a ship so quickly that no distress call was possible. Researchers at the University of Southampton have proposed that the unusual hexagonal cloud formations seen in satellite images over the Bermuda Triangle might generate what they describe as air bombs. Microbursts of air descending from storm clouds at speeds of up to 170 miles per hour. These air bombs could create ocean waves of 30 meters or more and generate severe turbulence for aircraft flying through the region. Theory 4. Compass anomalies and magnetic variations. The Bermuda Triangle is one of only 2 places on Earth where true north and magnetic north align perfectly. This is known as zero magnetic variation or a go-nick line. In most parts of the world, a compass needle does not point to true geographic north. It points to magnetic north, which is slightly different. Navigators account for this difference. In the Bermuda Triangle, this difference disappears. For navigators unfamiliar with the region, this could be deeply confusing. The compass appears to behave correctly but is actually pointing to true north, which could lead to significant navigation errors over long distances. Christopher Columbus's strange compass readings during his 1492 voyage almost certainly reflect this phenomenon. Theory 5. The supernatural theories. And then there are the theories that science cannot accommodate. Some people believe that the Bermuda Triangle is linked to the lost civilization of Atlantis. Specifically, that the ocean floor beneath the triangle contains remnant technology from Atlantis, possibly giant crystal energy devices that were once used to power the civilization and now, lying damaged on the seafloor, generate unpredictable energy fields that destroy ships and aircraft. This theory gained traction after divers discovered what appeared to be large rectangular stone formations on the ocean floor near the Bahamas in the late 1960s. These formations, known as the Bimini Road, have been claimed by some to be the remains of Atlantean roads or structures. Scientific analysis suggests they are more likely natural limestone formations shaped by geological processes. But the debate continues. Others propose extraterrestrial involvement. The argument goes that the technology required to make large ships and aircraft vanish without trace exceeds what any known natural phenomenon can achieve. Therefore, something beyond our current scientific understanding must be responsible. And the most obvious candidates are advanced non-human intelligences. These theories are fascinating as cultural phenomena. They tell us a great deal about human psychology and our deep need to find meaning and agency in mysterious events. But they are not supported by evidence. Theory 6. The vile vortices. In 1972, an American biologist and paranormal researcher named Ivan Sanderson proposed the concept of the vile vortices. He identified 12 equidistant points around the Earth where an unusual number of unexplained disappearances and anomalous phenomena had been reported. The Bermuda Triangle was one of these points. The Devil's Sea near Japan was another. Sanderson suggested that these 12 points might represent areas where the geometry of the Earth creates unusual electromagnetic conditions. No scientific evidence has confirmed this theory, but it has remained popular in the paranormal literature for over 50 years. The debunking, and why it is not the whole story. Larry Kush's debunking of the Bermuda Triangle myth in 1975 was genuinely important. He identified real errors and exaggerations in the popular literature. He was right to challenge the sloppy reporting and selective storytelling that had built the legend. But Kush's debunking is not the end of the story either. Because while it is true that many specific incidents attributed to the Bermuda Triangle were misrepresented, embellished, or simply wrong, it is also true that some of the most famous disappearances, Flight 19, the USS Cyclops, the Star Tiger, the Star Ariel, cannot be so easily dismissed. These were real ships and real aircraft, carrying real people, that vanished in this region without explanation, despite extensive searches and official investigations by the most powerful military and naval forces in the world. The USS Cyclops alone, with its 309 crew members, represents a mystery that no researcher has ever satisfactorily explained. You do not lose a ship of that size, in fair weather, with no distress call and no wreckage, and call it human error. The truth of the Bermuda Triangle lies somewhere between the paranormal mythology and the dismissive debunking. It is a region of genuinely unusual and dangerous oceanographic and meteorological conditions. It has a higher than average rate of maritime incidents for reasons that are at least partly explainable by science. And it has a small number of genuinely inexplicable incidents that remain unsolved despite the best efforts of investigators over many decades. The mystery is real. The mythology around it is exaggerated. And the truth is more interesting than either extreme. The Bermuda Triangle today. Today, the Bermuda Triangle is one of the most heavily traveled maritime and aviation corridors on Earth. Modern ships equipped with GPS, satellite communications, emergency beacons, and sophisticated weather forecasting technology cross it routinely without incident. Modern aircraft fly over it constantly. The U.S. Coast Guard, which monitors the region closely, maintains that the Bermuda Triangle is not significantly more dangerous than any other comparable area of ocean. And yet, the ocean floor of the Puerto Rico Trench, at over 27,000 feet deep, remains beyond the reach of any recovery technology currently in existence. Whatever lies down there, whatever ships and aircraft have come to rest in those crushing, lightless depths over the centuries, will remain there, undisturbed, perhaps forever. The mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle are not solved. They are buried. And the ocean keeps its secrets with an absolute silence that no technology has yet been able to break. OUTRO. The Bermuda Triangle endures as one of the great mysteries of human experience because it sits at the intersection of two of our deepest fears. The fear of the sea. Ancient, primal, wired into every human nervous system by hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. The sea is vast and deep and cold and utterly indifferent to human life. And the fear of the unknown. The terrifying possibility that the world contains phenomena that our science and our reason cannot explain. That there are corners of reality where the rules we depend on simply do not apply. The Bermuda Triangle is where those two fears meet. And they create something that has captivated, disturbed, and obsessed the human imagination for centuries. Whether the explanation is ultimately scientific or something else entirely, the mystery remains. And the ocean, dark and deep and silent as it has always been, is not telling. This has been Empire Echo Archive. The world's greatest mysteries, told honestly and completely. If this documentary kept you glued to your screen, please do 3 things right now. Hit that like button. Subscribe to Empire Echo Archive so you never miss a documentary like this. And leave a comment below. Do you believe the Bermuda Triangle is genuinely mysterious? Or is it all just myth and misreporting? Tell us what you think. We read every comment. Share this documentary with someone who loves a great mystery. This is Empire Echo Archive. And the echoes of the unexplained are never truly silent.